Welcome to Green Building Matters, the podcast that matters for green building professionals. Learn insight in green buildings as we interview today's experts in LEED and WELL. We'll learn from their career paths, war stories, and all things green, because green building matters. And now our host, and yes, he has every LEED and WELL credential. Here's Charlie Cicchetti.
Be sure to check out the Green Building Matters community, where you can have unlimited exam prep for any of the professional credential exams you're tackling next, as well as putting your continuing education on autopilot, saving time with GBS reporting your hours on your behalf. Check it out, gbes.com/join. Now, enjoy this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. Today we have Rosalind Wyatt, and she's coming to us from the Houston area. And I can't wait to really get into her story, some of her advanced degrees, the fact she's a LEED AP, but she's really taken sustainability, a passion of hers, and also overlaid it into marketing. And so, Rosalind, or Roz, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. You can call me Roz, Rosalind. That's my government name.
Oh, okay. All right. That's what's on the ID when you go to the Prometric Testing Center for that.
Yes, and they're checking very closely.
I love it. Well, I can't wait to just, take a look at your spin on sustainability, how you've made a career out of it. And again, marketing. I love marketing. So, but, Roz, take us back. Where'd you go to school? And I know you have multiple degrees. Tell us a little bit about, the early part of your career as well.
Okay. So, as I probably said to you before, it's kind of been a really funky journey, right? It's kind of totally non-linear. So I will say that I started out as an electrical engineering major here in Texas at Prairie View A&M University, which is a historically Black college and university, about 45 minutes away from Houston. It has a great engineering program, and I, just decided to major in electrical engineering. Nobody really told me to do that. I mean, I didn't have somebody to say, wow, you should be an engineering major. I just thought, hey, I'm pretty good at math. So, from what I hear, that's what, engineering majors do, a lot of math, and especially on the electrical side. So I got finished up and got my bachelor's in electrical engineering. I went to work at a power plant in Tennessee, actually, the Tennessee Valley Authority. I worked for a year in a nuclear power plant. So that was really, really interesting. I hope I didn't have any Homer Simpson moments, creating a catastrophe on the other side of the world. But it was fun. But all along, I knew that I wanted to go back to school. And I thought, well, am I going to do it in engineering? And look, here's the thing. Secrets revealed. Engineering is really, really interesting, but the day in and day out engineering work, I said, I think I want to expand a little bit more. So I decided to go and get an MBA. And I was like, I like the business side of technology, right? I like the business side, the business aspects of technology and providing power for people. Yes, that's great. And here are all the things we do to get, electricity into your home. But, what are the business aspects of that? So I decided to go and get an MBA, finished up around 1990 and continued on and decided to come back to Houston, where I am from originally. Okay, so right when I came back, there was a really, really big recession here. We are an oil-based economy here.
Sure.
So things were kind of funky. So I said, well, I was having a hard time finding what I wanted to do next. And so I had some downtime and I said, you know what? I'm going to do something that I kind of always wanted to do. So it's like a fun thing. And I had just gotten married. So I had kind of a little bit of freedom to kind of explore some different things. So I decided to go and work for the National Public Radio affiliate here in Houston. So, I have this, engineering background, this, business knowledge that I just received a degree for. So like, hey, I'm going to take this and go over it and be a news reporter, right? So, like I said, this journey has been weird, but it was a lot of fun, right? So I got a chance to delve into a lot of different issues. And at that time, no one was really, really talking about sustainability. Although something came on the scene, the Kyoto Protocol. Mm-hmm. Remember that? So, that's like the extent. Nobody was talking about sustainability, especially down here in Texas, right? So after that, I worked at NPR for, our local affiliate for about 3 years. And then I decided to go and use the degree that I had, the MBA, and I worked at Texas Southern University, and I was a business analyst for the law school. And, that just involved a whole bunch of budgets and, and making sure that spending guidelines were held and, all that's helping people find products and buying stuff and working with purchasing and finding vendors. So that was, it was a job. So I did that and then actually stayed there for about 3 years and decided to go and get my Ph.D. And I had somebody to encourage me. So this time somebody actually encouraged me to do this, right? So I didn't just kind of jump out there and say, hey, I want to get a Ph.D. So somebody said, no, you should get a Ph.D. in marketing. I think it'll be really good for you because, you kind of have this analytical background. And I think people think when they think about marketing, they're thinking about like advertising and sales, right? But when you study it at the doctoral level, there's a lot of research, right? A lot of research and analysis. So I did that and I finished up and I went and started teaching at the University of Houston, where I, got my degree, where I got my PhD. So I taught at University of Houston a total of 10 years. But I can tell you that around 2007, 2008, I don't know why I started feeling uneasy. I don't know what it was. Something happened. And I just started feeling this sense of like, what are we doing here? As a marketer, especially as an academic and as a consultant, one of the things you're doing is you're either teaching people or you're helping people sell more stuff, right? You're helping them sell. That's the whole thing. You're helping them find people to sell more stuff to, in a nutshell. And I don't know, I just started feeling like, man, we really are selling a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff. And as it turns out, I happened to find the story of stuff. I know some of your audience might be familiar with that video. And it talked about the cost, basically, of just having a lot of stuff, right? And how we we get all the benefits of that, but somebody else pays the price, right? So if it's being manufactured in a developing country or whatever, so, they keep all the waste and we get all the benefit, right? So it just made me uneasy. And I just was like, man, I can't, and as the years kept going by, I just got more and more and more uneasy. And around that time, 2008, I think I went to a business and sustainability conference. And the cool thing about that was it was both a kind of a conference for both academics and practitioners, right? So I got a chance to sit in on the practitioner sessions and those, workshops or forums and things. And I discovered like, man, there are people who are doing business And they are really trying to do it in a better way. They are really, really, trying to be more sustainable. So I got inspired after that. And like I said, the years kind of wore on, and I just little by little, I kind of changed the way I taught marketing, right? I just, it's like, well, damn the torpedoes. Yeah. I'm just going to say, tell people the truth, right? I mean, we've got an issue with planned obsolescence, where products are made and they're kind of designed to need to be replaced, right? Mm-hmm. I always made the joke in my class that my aunt had an iron that I swear that she had for about 45 years. I know that iron. And it could also be used as a weapon too, by the way. It was really heavy. But she, I think she finally got rid of it. And I was like, young people used to have appliances like that just were built to last a really long time. And what you did was you repaired them. And, and I guess they look at me like, what is this you speak of? What is this repair?
We're a society of abundance. You're right. It's just our first reaction. Sometimes as Americans, let's just replace it. It's maybe even less expensive to replace it. But you're right. I think we teach it in some of the lead classes I work on is, reduce, reuse, recycle. Now we're adding refuse in front of that. So it's consumer almost guilt trip. I'm hearing that how you were maybe teaching your advanced marketing courses. I'm reading between the lines. And then I think from what I've read about you, Roz, is maybe you got more hands-on with small and medium-sized businesses there locally. So talk to us a little bit about that when maybe you really got, you changed the way you were teaching marketing there. You had, by then it sounds like a sustainability bug too, around 2008 or so. So yeah, what's an example of one of your classes where you had that sustainability, but you also had the consciousness of just, the consumer side?
Well, so we had opportunities, and I would always reach out to people in the small business community, especially those businesses that were trying to be more sustainable. So, for example, we worked with a cheese seller, right? So this was a person who went around Texas and just found producers, local producers of cheeses. And what she did was she basically branded those and marketed them because, you have these people who've been doing these type of things, right? Cheese making, for example, and they do it wonderfully well, but they are not marketers, right? They're always looking to sell it, sell to restaurants or stores or whatever. And she was able to come in and just, help them take their businesses to another level because she helped them market it. And she was doing a whole lot of local stuff. So it's companies like that I would seek out to do marketing projects with my class, right? And so what would happen is you bring the business owners in, those business owners, if it was local food or if it was, some local manufacturing. I did one class with a guy, and we're still good friends to this day, who makes furniture, and especially from repurposed wood. I mean, beautiful, just beautiful. I cannot even describe how beautiful his products are. But what would happen is when you bring those business owners in to talk about, hey, this is why I do this. This is what I believe in. And oh, by the way, I want to have a successful business. Then, students started saying that, oh, you know what? I guess that's a thing that you can kind of do better by the earth and still, have a really, really good business. And those two examples that I just gave you, I mean, they are now, it's been some years, but they are really doing well, those businesses. And incidentally, I got a group of friends of mine together, and we started this little organization called Sustainable Houston, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole idea behind Sustainable Houston was it was kind of more of a business to business connection, right? So we wanted to help promote locally owned and sustainable businesses and help them grow. And everybody was kind of busy, but we would hold little forums, and we do events, and although it's not a formal group anymore, we still have our Facebook group together. And one of the things that I do is promote local businesses, and especially food businesses and those that are trying to localize their supply chains and or do manufacturing locally. So that helping small businesses and reaching out kind of just went hand in hand with the teaching, because it allowed my students to see that, hey, these people, they exist and they want to be, this is, and I always tell them jokingly but seriously, it's business, it's not a charity, right? There are charities that are designed and nonprofits that move this work forward, that move sustainability forward, and local food and all that. But these are businesses, so they need to make a profit, and they need to be able to be around for years and decades to come, and they need to hire people. So
Rosalind, let me ask you a question.
Successful.
With your marketing experience, and now with the nonprofit you started, Sustainable Houston, I get this question from time to time is, what are those tips to maybe get someone, because you have influence, you have a circle of influence, right? I always remind everyone that, set the whole macro side of it aside. Like, we have a circle of influence, our friends, our family, those that trust us, those we lead in our businesses. And so what are a few tips you might have to get someone to be a little more eco-conscious? Anything you've seen work, you can give tips on?
You know what? Yeah, that's, that can be a touchy thing, right? So one of the things that I find that works for me is that I just ask people questions. Just ask matter-of-fact questions. So, what happens when, there gets to be too much plastic in the oceans? What do you think happens? Where does it go? And genuinely just ask them questions. And what I see happening is I see people they might shut down, right? And they may not have anything to say, or they can't come up with an answer, but what it does is it puts the thought in their minds without kind of making them be defensive, right? So, the first thing is if you say, oh my God, why are you using that plastic? Why are you drinking water out of that plastic bottle?
Yeah.
It makes people defensive. So I find that if you just ask them simple questions, and like I said, even if they can't answer, or if it disturbs them, it's out there then, right? So then what happens next, hopefully, is that they start thinking about it, and, they kind of come to these realizations on their own, right? You kind of, they get to see what am I really doing? Or they then pay attention to stuff on the news, or they pay attention a little bit more. So it's really, it's a long-term process. And then I'm sure there are some people who tell you, well, we don't have that long, right? Yeah. So I tell you, the trick is moving the needle with the people, who shop at big box stores, right? So.
No, that's great. And I think, you got to show some hope, some optimism. You're right. You can't chastise. So I just love this conversation. Well, let me ask you, was there anyone that maybe opened some doors for you? Any mentors along the way?
In terms of sustainability work and kind of shifting, no, not really. However, you meet these people along the way that are already in that space, kind of, and they kind of encourage you, with what they're doing. Like for me, there was a business owner that we worked with for one of our classes, and she was bound and determined to have a LEED certified store, right? Oh. And here in Houston, so that would, I guess that would fall under ID&C, right? Because she was in a strip center.
Right. Sure.
And I don't think that core and shell, I don't think it was lead. I don't think it was at all. But she was determined. And she did everything that needed to be done to make that a LEED certified retail store. And she worked so hard to be so authentic, right? And the products and have transparency and answer the questions that people had. It just kind of inspires you, right? So, she was not in academia, right? But she inspired me to do better, right? And to help kids see that, hey, this is a thing. And you really should be learning more about this. When we did the project with her, we took students there because I like for students, if we're doing a project with a local business, I like them to go on site. Don't just, listen to the person come and speak to you about, oh, this is my business. This is what I'm trying to do. Go and see what it is that they see. See it from their point of view. Talk to their customers. So, yeah, like I said, there have been people who have truly inspired me.
That's great. That's fantastic. I've got to ask, you're a LEED AP O+M, and that's a rare credential. And so there's only about 3,000 of us, Roz, in the world. And my follow-ups can be, how do you balance academia and marketing and entrepreneurship and the nonprofit? I'm always curious how you balance multiple things because I try to do that too. But before, just tell us about the LEED AP. What did that mean to you? And tell us a little bit about why the existing building side.
I tell you, it has been fabulous. I'm glad I did it. So about a year ago, I have a good colleague that works in our city of Houston. We have a Green Building Resource Center. And even before then, I got really, really interested in green buildings. So, if you talk about sustainability, there are many industries that you can kind of focus on, right? And I told you before that I work with small businesses and everything from furniture making to, local food or whatever. But I got really, really interested in green building. And that was the industry that I wanted to focus on, whether it was, marketing, consulting or whatever. That's what I wanted to focus on. So I started going to the Green Building Resource Center, and I got kind of, I would go to different USGBC events and whatnot. And, they were saying, oh, you get a green associates. Okay. So I started out doing that, and I was able to accomplish that. And all along, I kind of said, I think I'm going to take this further. There were some wonderful people, as I'm sure there are in every city, that do the study sessions, and they kind of have these study groups or whatever.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I told the person that was leading the study group, I said, I think I'm going to go further. And working at not working there, but just kind of hanging out at the Green Building Resource Center, some way, I do not know how, I got involved in 2 LEED projects that were taking place. I don't know what happened. I sat in on a meeting one time, and the next thing I know, I'm there all the time. So in working kind of as a volunteer, a person that's kind of pushing or helping this process along, one was for an existing building and one was for a new construction. I just knew, I said, well, I need to go ahead and complete this LEED AP, right? So, just by working with those projects, I got inspired to do it. It's a lot of studying. There's a lot of material, especially on the O&M side. And I decided to go with O&M because I'm not an architect, right? But I have an engineering background. So, those are the guys, the MEP people, all the building operators, those are the type of people that I probably
makes sense.
Deal with. So, as an engineer, or at least having a background in engineering, I can speak that language.
No, I'm proud of you for getting multiple LEED credentials. And the how do I green up an existing building? That's a great path to go down. What are some of your proudest achievements? You've done a lot, obviously, and I'm just we were talking earlier. What's on the highlight reel? What pops into your mind?
Getting that lead AP.
All right, good. That's what I want you to say. Yeah, good.
that was a lot of study.
Tricky exams, yeah.
But so that I would say that is definitely on my highlight reel.
And not just sustainability wise. Clearly, you have a passion for it. You started nonprofits around it. You got the itch and then now you brought it into the classroom. So just other things, though. I mean, what stands out? What are you really proud of?
Well, finishing my Ph.D. was huge. Was a highlight because when I was in school, I started with how was he at the time? My son was about 19 months old when I started.
Oh, wow.
And by the time I finished, I had a 2-year-old. So, that was harrowing. But it worked out fine. Started with 1 kid, ended with 2. So that was a lot of juggling. And I guess I can really say that I'm proud to have finished that and done that work and done the research and, finished up everything. That is an excellent moment. And as, of course, any mother would tell you, the other thing is my children. I am they will be at the front of the highlight reel of my life. But those are the major things. But I tell you, I get a lot of pleasure just from the everyday things of like telling people about sustainability and, and raising people's consciousness about green building. And I tell you, and I just had an opportunity the other day to go to Austin. I was up there for something, but Austin has their public library is LEED Platinum.
Oh, wow.
And man, I tell you, that is like, those are little bitty highlights of my life, right? Where you get the chance to go and see the work that people do. And the building engineer was just gracious enough to give me a tour. We spent time, we went through systems, saw the rain cistern. It was just awesome. So those little things, being able to do those things are highlights as well.
No, I love it. And so you had one son when you started the PhD program. You were there for a handful of years, and then you had a second. Is that right? While you're finishing up?
Yeah, I had a daughter.
So a son and a daughter.
I had a daughter. So yes, I tell her now she's probably joined in my hip. Even though now she started college, she's off in college now, but she's joined in my hip because, every night when I was up trying to do research and look at papers to write my dissertation, she was right there. She was a little baby.
Sure.
So, I didn't make her, how everybody tries to get babies to sleep through the night. I guess I delayed her sleeping through the night for about 8 months because she was up with me all the time. So,
it was hard at the time, but those are those memorable moments you'll never forget.
Yeah. I think it's given us a special relationship. And my son, he just was a trooper just all the way through. So,
yeah, I love it. Those are definitely some proudest achievements. Well, Ros, fast forward to today. Tell us a little bit about what's keeping you busy today. I know you have your own business and you also have the nonprofit and you're probably still doing some teaching. So what's keeping you busy today?
Those things that you mentioned, but here lately, it's like such an awesome thing. Right after I completed the exam and got the lead AP, a colleague here said, "Oh, I want you to do some work with me." So I immediately started kind of working with another consulting firm. Like I mentioned to you before, how I kind of stumbled into those lead projects. Like I said, I just sat in a meeting. So now I guess I have a more formal role. I have a more formal role with that. So I'm kind of working on one of the credits for one of those projects, and I need to go into and do some write-up on that. I need to write a policy or one of those quotes. I can't remember which one.
And then the green policies, just shoot me an email and I'll share with you some policies and best practices. Okay. We do a lot of lead EB work. I'm happy to share some of that with you. Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes, very much. And, and here's the other thing. So one of the things, I guess, in having a business background as well, one of the things that I am really, really involved in is helping people make the business case for this, right? So, LEED is a wonderful thing, right? These certifications are wonderful. But, the first thing people say is, oh, it's going to cost so much more, right?
Sure.
So one of the areas that I really get involved in is doing kind of life cycle analysis and, helping make the business case for it. I would say if I was good at anything, it's helping people see the big picture, right? Because it's really easy. And LEED does have you kind of get down into the weeds on a lot of things. So there's kind of like all these little separate things, like indoor air quality and, I got to be concerned about, materials purchasing and, there's all those little bitty things. But one of the things that I would say that I am blessed to be able to do is to help people see the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. I'm a strategist at the most basic level. I say, hey, it can get done. We just have to figure out the right strategy to do it. So I would say that is really where I feel that I can help people out, and just kind of be that person that kind of helps people from the very, very beginning.
Well, I think it's so
create a roadmap. Yeah.
I mean, you got to strategize around it because, what's in it for you? How do you elevate their status? I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that not just go for, say, a LEED certification, but to be more environmentally minded. It's easy to say, well, let's save the planet. Let's have a home for our kids. And that's important. And that's important to you as a parent, me as a parent. I have 3 young boys. But I think you're right. You got to take it a lot more thorough than that. And so I'm proud of you for mentioning the triple bottom line on your company page and just really focus on the sustainable products. So tell us just a little more about marketing elements, your company there in Houston.
Well, I would say it's evolving, right? So in the past, I have kind of worked with green businesses kind of across a wider product spectrum. But right now, I am kind of honing in more on the green building industry. So if you want to talk about pursuing LEED, I work with some wonderful architects who know all about that. If you want to talk about looking at what it is that you do already, how you can kind of green your operations, green your supply chain. If you're a product manufacturer, I work in that area. The main thing is I think my focus has kind of really, really honed in on the green building industry, more so than just being kind of a more generalist. I still give people advice, even if they're not in green building, and I'll work with them. But green building is my industry. That's really where I put my eggs. That's the basket that I put my eggs in. So, like I said, the goal is to help people look at the bigger picture. And we find, and like I said, I have an opportunity to work with some wonderful people who can put all those pieces together.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think you're in the right place. The green building movement, I've made a career out of it. We've got the podcast here. We've got the education company. We've got the consulting firm. And just, I think whether you're helping a building owner spin what they just accomplished on the sustainability front or a building product manufacturer, really tell their story and how they fit into it, I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there.
Very much so.
So let's pretend you had a crystal ball. What do you think we should be reading up on? What do you think's next?
Well, one of the things that is of interest to me is kind of the, for lack of a better term, the democratization of LEED, right? We tend to think of LEED in terms of these wonderful, high-end commercial structures. But I'm always thinking about LEED and, just green building sustainability in general in terms of like affordable housing, what happens in some like inner city neighborhoods, taking that message, because of course, in many cases, those are people who are most impacted by climate change, right? And by these horrible things that happen. Of course, I live in Houston, so you may have heard of our little storm that we had called Harvey.
Right.
And it was devastating. It was devastating. And there are people who are still displaced. You would think, it's been almost 2 years now, but there are people who are still displaced. So, the one thing is, how can we help people who may typically be overlooked? How do we bring them in on this and help, make their homes or their neighborhoods greener? Like I said, how do we democratize LEED and sustainability, right? And just kind of bring it more to the masses who have a hard time,
Yeah. No, resiliency. That's the word that keeps popping up more and more and more.
Very much.
It's sad that we have to be more resilient with the way that the storms are in nature. And I think you're definitely onto something there, but you've been impacted by it. And I just really think it's something we all have to make sure is part of our, not just business, but hey, do we even think about that in our personal lives?
Yeah.
Good. Gosh, really enjoying the conversation here, Roz. Let's ask a humbling question here. What's your specialty? What are you best at? What's your gift?
Oh my heavens. Oh my gosh. You know what? I like to cook. So, I guess it's not surprising that I deal with a lot of, local foodie people and, local foods. But I like to cook. I really, that's something I enjoy. But I tell you, once kids grow up, man, I seem to be doing a lot less of that. So, I love to really tour these wonderful LEED facilities. Man, I could spend all day. And, it's amazing. I tell people, and you may understand this, but I can almost walk into a building and tell that it has a LEED certification without even seeing the plaque, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a whole different feel. It's like, wait, what's going on here? So those things, like I said, I love to help people strategize. I love to help people, plan. And I love to raise people's consciousness about stuff. I didn't think I did that, but I had a friend that told me, you're always raising people's consciousness. And I was like, well, what does that mean? I just tell people stuff like, hey, did you know? Hey, did you know? That's how I guess that's my typical greeting. Hey, did you know that? So that's about it. That's about it. I tell you, I guess I've been teaching so long. I guess I do it in my everyday life. I do it without even thinking about it. Yeah.
That's when it's it needs to be a way of life still. That just makes sense. But maybe what's your favorite thing to cook, though? Going back to the first part of the question, what is there a go-to recipe for you?
I like cobbler. It's like, fun. You know what? It's so funny because when I was growing up, my grandparents had a farm. I guess you say a small farm, but there were always like these blackberries around, right, in the summertime. So when the cousins, we were all visiting the grandparents, I think they would just get tired of us, like making so much noise. So they would send us out with a bucket and say, go pick berries. Just go pick berries. So we would spend our times out there in those, those little thick bushes, hopefully avoiding snakes. But we would come back with these buckets of blackberries, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, and I would watch my grandmother, make the cobbler. So, she's been deceased a long time, but I remember that so well. And I have no idea, one day I just started making berry cobblers. And, and when I tasted it, it just reminded me of my grandmother. So, things like that, especially, stuff that you can get locally. I love to go to the farmers markets and just kind of concoct and come up with these things. I tell you, I guess I have a recipe book in my memory banks, right? From my grandmother, my mom, and my aunts. So I tell you this, I like to improvise too. So sometimes I just think of stuff and modify it, right? There's probably about a 70%
when I'm cooking. I like to modify when I'm cooking. When you're baking, I know sometimes that can be a recipe for disaster. My wife's a great baker as well, and she's like, no, I don't mess with the science of that. But
no, you can't. But other recipes, other type, main dishes and stuff, you can play around with that.
Well, I don't know if it's a secret family recipe. If it's not, maybe you could email me a berry cobbler recipe, and I'll post it here in the podcast notes because I'm sure everyone listening is getting a little hungry right now.
If they love berry cobbler,
we should do it.
I'll send the one that I use.
Let's do that, and I will post it. Just a couple more questions here. Do you have any routines or rituals that help you stay on point or remain successful?
I'm such an undisciplined person. I tell you, there are these people who do these things and they're always so ordered. And I don't have that gift. But I tell you, one of the things that I do make it a point to do is to read something every day about this industry, about sustainability. I mean, every single day, just to keep up and stay on top of it.
That encouragement.
Yeah, things change and people are doing such wonderful things. And, I don't like to be left out of the loop on that. I want to know all the stuff that people are doing. Somebody came up with a new, way to store solar. I want to know about it, right? I want to know everything. That I would say that's the one thing that I do.
That's a great pro tip. And set those alerts, whatever your news feed is, or maybe Google alerts if there's a topic you want to follow. And I find it encouraging, because you're going to go after, I think most of the sustainability movement is pretty hopeful and encouraging, exciting, innovative. I mean, it's just usually a little more upbeat. That probably gives you a little energy when you're reading those articles.
Yeah, really.
Well, Roz, I'm a fan of the bucket list. And so are there one or two things you could share that are maybe on your bucket list, not just professional, but personal, maybe some travel, adventure? I don't know. What's on your bucket list?
I tell you, in seeing how people are really embracing green building around the world, some of those structures and these, projects are so beautiful. I would love to just do a green building tour, right? Let's go to all the continents, well, except Antarctica, unless they're building green projects there. I don't know.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. But I'd like to take the 7-continent, well, 6, right? Tour of green building, right? And just kind of see how people approach design in that way. Also for the food too, as well. I say I'm going there to see the projects, but along the way, let's check out the food. That kind of travel, and also I would be interested to see, what's happening, especially in some of the developing countries with that. How are they handling that? Because I tell you, all of the resiliency needs kind of land there because those people are most affected by the issues that we're facing.
You're absolutely right. Well, I think you can turn that bucket list into maybe a business idea in the future. I see travel. People go with you. You see the LEED buildings, the greenest buildings in the world, and you enjoy some good sustainable food. Heck, I think that's a good business idea there.
Okay, we'll have to talk about it. Maybe we can put something together.
All right, let's do it. Well, let's talk about books. As much as I would love to pick up more hard copies, I listen to a lot on Audible at 1.5 speed. And but tell me, do you like to pick up a good book? Do you listen? Any books you might recommend?
Gosh, when I have the time, I guess I read so many articles and so many,
Sure,
research papers. I think a really good book, and it's really easy to read. I would say, let me see. I think Drawdown. Drawdown was really good.
oh yeah,
And really, really easy. It's like easy to read, and I think when I read Drawdown, I was surprised by some of the things that make the most difference, right? In terms of climate change. Drawdown was excellent. And probably on another front, I get a chance to read some other, I almost say kind of political books, but kind of like more policy books, right? So I read a book recently called The Color of Law.
okay.
And it kind of talked about, this kind of historical kind of look at housing and, the issues with housing and how some neighborhoods became kind of lower income, due to various policies. And so one of the things, you always want to know how things got to be the way they are. And it helps and informs you in, going forward. So, I'll read some policy books. I read a book not too long ago called, it talked about, it was 100 Years of Obamacare. And that was really interesting because it was a wonderful book on how, when Obamacare came about, ACA, everybody was, thinking that this was such a radical thing. But if you look back in history, even Teddy Roosevelt and others really tried to tackle, this healthcare issue. And it is such a huge issue, and it's getting to be more of an issue day by day by day. So, like I said, I spend a lot of time reading, if it has to do with sustainability or public policy, or that's probably where I spend most of my time.
That's exciting. No, and it sounds like you're in there daily. It's a great habit. Last question. Any advice you wish you had a little early in your career, or just any words of encouragement for someone jumping into this green building movement?
Advice. Here's the thing. I like I said, I told you it was a long and winding road, but I don't think I would trade anything for it because it, each step has brought me to where I am today. And I'm able to look at this with kind of like a wider lens, I think, than I would if I had just done this straight, come out of school, gotten in, did straight engineering work, and then got the sustainability bug. And so I look at it, from a really, really broad perspective. I'll tell you one thing that I've been encouraging, especially college students, to do, if you have any kind of, if you think in any way, any kind of roundabout interest, I've been encouraging young people to think about getting their green associates in LEED. Right? Yeah. And they might say, well, I'm not involved in that. But it cannot hurt you. That's one thing. And I think it just gives you a general sense of sustainability. I think it's really good. I would love to see more colleges. I mean, I've been trying to sell this idea of getting young people to do LEED projects, while they're in school, right? So having like LEED labs.
Love it.
But if you're in any way thinking about sustainability, at the very least, get a LEED Green Associate. So I've been kind of telling young people about that.
No, it's great advice, and it's such a good framework, right? Because it forces you to learn a little bit about renewables and how I might be more efficient, and I can do that in a building, I can do it at home, and that's what that terminology means. So it's just a good framework, and so I
It is an excellent framework.
I think, I don't know if you know, but 40% of those that are signed up to take their lead green associate, believe it or not, Roz, are in high school and college. So we're seeing actually a pretty big push there, which is super exciting right now. So keep up the good work.
Wonderful.
And I've just really enjoyed our conversation. It's just been unique because, you've balanced marketing, you've balanced, the entrepreneurial side, the nonprofit side, the academic side, and super proud of you for your accomplishments, and especially that lead AP O+M that you put those letters right after your very important Ph.D. So, Roz,
That's right. That's right.
To talk my wife into maybe making that berry cobbler, and I just want to say thanks for being on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I just want to say thank you to our loyal listeners. We actually are celebrating over 1 year here on the Green Building Matters podcast. Me and the entire team were stoked and just so glad you continue to listen every Wednesday morning to a new interview with a green building professional here in this industry, or just some pro tips that we want to make sure that you are getting straight from us, straight to you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At gbes.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode, and you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast, tell your colleagues, and if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.